Hey guys, Duke here. Today we're going to be taking a look at the US XM47 Land Warrior gas mask. Now, I bet you're wondering, isn't this just an M45, or don't you mean XM45? And no, in fact, I do mean XM47, and I will get into the reasons why in a moment. So, I've already touched base on the development of the M45 plenty of times here on this channel, but I will recap it again just in case you are new to this and just getting into this channel. But the M45 program was initiated from the XM44 series masks developed starting in 1992 for the Soldier Integrated Protective Ensemble program, and by 1993 or so it was realized that the US Army did not want a series of one mask to fulfill all needs and branches. So what they ended up doing was they dropped the original XM44, which was the Land Forces mask, and they continued progress on the XM45, which was developed for aircrews, obviously. And the reason they wanted this is because the current aircrew masks for rotary wing aircrews was the older ABC M24 from the Vietnam era, and there was also the very expensive and complicated to produce M43 and M43A1 chemical biological aviators masks, specifically the Type 2, whereas the Type 1 was for Apache crews. But the U.S. Army wanted the XM45 as a cheaper alternative that would have been easier to integrate and would have been obviously a lot more suitable for non-Apache rotary wing aircrews. But nevertheless, development continued, and while this was happening, there was a person involved in the contract by the name of Richard Campbell. Richard Campbell was the owner of, at the time, Venture Plastics, but through his involvement with the XM44 and subsequent XM45 programs, he had ended up renaming the company to Campbell's Plastics Engineering Co. And what he ended up doing, what he was contracted for by the U.S. Army, was to take the XM45 and develop lightweight plastic components for all of the major hardware. And that is what he did by 1995. And by that time, the U.S. Army had initiated the Project Land Warrior, which was simply a means of upgrading and integrating various body sensors, night vision, thermal imagery, etc., into a more modular and modern soldier equipment ensemble, and part of that program would have ultimately been the XM45. However, it wasn't called the XM45 when it was with the Land Warrior program. No, so as you see, the U.S. Army took the standard XM45 and they realized, hey, this has optical integration, this has an integral microphone, this would be perfect for integrating into all the electronic gadgetry and doodads currently slapped onto the Land Warrior ensemble. So what they did was they took the XM45, like I said, and they gave it a new designation, the XM47. And I bet you're wondering, why didn't they just call it the XM44? Because obviously XM44 was the designation for the ground forces variant of that series of masks. Well, really it was the fact that it had a lot different ideologies and doctrine going for it, because the XM47 did not have an integral microphone and was simply meant more as a upgraded M40 with more optical integration, whereas the XM47 was meant to be a fully integrated ensemble of a protective mask with integral comms, etc. By the time that the XM45 was adopted in 1996 as the M45 chemical biological aircraft mask, the U.S. Army had realized that the XM47 designation was redundant because, again, they're literally the same mask. There's no reason to differentiate. And that was pretty much the end of that. And then we get into the history of Campbell patenting the design and getting into a long patent war with the U.S. Army. But that's really ahead of where we currently are with this mask. So this is a pre-contract, pre-production IOTE example. And what IOTE means is initial operational test and evaluation, and that is basically what this is. This is experimental, and I will highlight all the little subtle things that make it as an experimental mask. So before we do that, let's get into the kit. Starting with the carrier, obviously, as a Land Warrior mask, this would have used a standard M40 series carrier. They didn't have a lot of XM45, XM47 specific accessories for the masks, so they just recycled a lot of M40 stuff. And they continued doing that after the M45 was adopted. You see a lot of ground forces adapted M45s, which have M40 soft shell carriers. Although they did end up printing their own manual after 1997 or so. And this is, I would have to date this mask sometime around 1995 to 1996, because this is just a standard M40 manual, M40A1, M42A1. So very interesting to note that. has a M1 waterproofing bag, pretty much gold standard for all US gas mask kits at the time. Basically, put your mask in there in case you're crossing a river and the mask is in immediate risk of being submerged. And then you have the clear lens outserts, which again are interesting because there is absolutely no label or manufacturer's markings, etc., no stamps on the packaging, which you would see on normal M45 outsert packaging. So again, definitely experimental pre-contract type of stuff. You have a C2 canister here, which really nothing to gawk at. The M45 series mask uses C2 or C2A1. And then let's get into the mask itself, because that's where all the interesting stuff is. So starting off with the more blatant stuff, looking at the front voice emitter here, you can see that there is an electro-penciled markings stating IOTE 147. So obviously, initial operational test and evaluation, serial number 147. This is the 147th example of an XM47 procured for the Land Warrior tests. And then, coming off of the mic port, there is a double-ended male 3-pin connector, which would probably more than likely integrate with the Land Warrior chin strap microphone, which was seen in a lot of earlier photos of the Land Warrior ensemble. And then the main difference from a normal M45 is there's no markings. There's a lack of manufacturer's markings on the side of the facepiece. And if you take a look at the normal M45 over here, you can see that there's clearly markings here. In this case, this one's made by West American Rubber Company in 2006, and you have a serial stamp there. Whereas the XM47 here has none of that, and presumably the XM45s would not have had this either. Looking on the other side, you can see that the secondary skin does not have any stamps either, as the later production ones would have. The secondary skin is also somewhat textured. I don't know if you can see that very well on camera, but the secondary skin on the XM47 has a bit of texturing to it, presumably to eliminate sun glare and reflectiveness to give away your position, whereas they had no such concerns with the finalized M45, and you can see they did not bother texturing this at all. It's completely smooth, very reflective. And then, really, there's no markings. There would have been a manufacturer's formula stamp on the lower right harness strap, and then obviously there's one here on the finalized M45. And that is about it for the external differences, for the most part there. And I will invert the harnesses, and I will show off the interior. So I will pause the camera one moment, and I will get that on camera for you. Alright, now that we have the harnesses inverted, we can begin to take a look at all the little individual features of each difference in the masks. So from this angle, we can sort of get an idea of the massive amount of modularity when it comes to the M45 sizing, because as with my XM47 over here, this is a medium facepiece, but it has an extra large nose cup in it, meanwhile my normal M45 is a large with a large nose cup. The nose cups in these masks are infinitely interchangeable, and not even the Avon FM53 and FM54 series masks can do this, as there is a pretty set limit to the size of nose cup that you can interchange in those masks, whereas the M45 doesn't give a shit about that. You can swap out any size of nose cup in whatever size facepiece you have, pretty much. But getting away from that, let's talk about the interesting stuff. So, both of these face pieces look pretty identical. There's nothing really different about them, but the interesting thing that I want to point out is the microphone on the XM47 here. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this very well. I'll try and pry the nose cup back and get a good look at it, but tucked back in there, as you can see, there is the Land Warrior mic. And why is this special? It's because you can see that it's not like the standard M133/U dynamic microphones on the microphone positioner. As you can see, it's very chunky, takes up a decent amount of space, kind of awkward to position inside the facepiece. It's just overall a more rugged, lower profile microphone system that doesn't take up that much space in the mask, and there's less connecting parts to foul up. I don't really know how good quality these mics are. I haven't actually tested any of these, and I don't really have the setup to do so right now, but I would have to imagine this is definitely the better microphone to choose if you're running this mask as a, obviously, a foot soldier. So you'd want to have less complicated stuff in the way, and you'd want the microphone to be as simple and rugged as possible. But really, it's such a good mic design. I'm really disappointed that you don't see these. In fact, this is the only example of one of these Land Warrior mics that I've actually seen so far. If you have another one of these, I'm not interested in buying it, but I'd love to hear about it, because I've legitimately never seen any other physical examples of those Land Warrior mics except for this one, which is why I actually had to snag this, because I doubt that I'm ever going to see another one of those Land Warrior mics, and this is probably the first time on YouTube that we're ever going to see a video of one. So, not to blow my own horn about it, I just wanted to make that explicitly clear that those Land Warrior mics are a very, very important feature that you don't really see again after the XM47 trial. So, that's really about it for the internal views. It's I put a difference of the two microphones on screen in case the camera couldn't see it very well. So that being said, I will invert the harness back again, and I will end the review there. And now you've hopefully seen the differences between the XM47 and the M45 and what makes this particular mask so special. That's really all I have to say on it. If you have any comments, questions, corrections, or concerns, as always, drop them down in the comments below. I'll try to get more reviews out relatively soon, depends on my level of health, but nevertheless, I will see you all later.